Hey guys, it's Sam from Nonfiction Horror. Today's video is going to be my top 5 book to film adaptations, scary edition. For me, these books are in no particular order, so there's not like a countdown, but I do have my top 5. So I will say that for me, I tried to find stories that weren't maybe overly hyped, that don't have a huge fandom around them, but nonetheless, I'm sure you've heard of all these titles, but I tried to exclude, for example, The Shining, or The Exorcist, or Jaws, stuff like that, some little bit lesser known titles. So let's get started. The first film is Rosemary's Baby. So I read this last year and I really liked the book. It was light, quick read, easy to follow, and pretty much it's about this lady, Rosemary, who ends up getting pregnant with her husband after they move into this really nice apartment flat. So her husband's away at work all the time, so she ends up becoming really good friends with the elderly couple next door, specifically the wife, and she's in her late 70s or early 80s, and so she kind of takes solace in this lady because she kind of comes to her like, hey, have you taken your prenatal vitamins? How are you feeling? They end up hanging out a lot of the time when her husband's away, so she kind of feels like she has a friend watching over her. But then shortly she realizes that her husband's now starting to hang out with them, which wouldn't cause any suspicion, except now he's starting to act weird. He's there all the time. The elderly couple's kind of treating her a little bit differently, and so she's starting to suspect something's up. So she kind of does a little bit of investigating, which leads to the climax of the film that shows what they've been doing this whole time when she's just been, you know, she suspected something but she wasn't quite sure, so you really get to see what they've been into. And I will say I kind of saw it coming, but I kind of didn't see it coming because I didn't think that elderly couples did this in their pastime, but nonetheless it was a pretty exciting read and kept you page turning till the very end trying to figure out what the hell are they doing. The next title is the Amityville Horror. So I read this book last year and I listened to it on audio, and for me, I really feel that's the best way to listen to any scary story, because I did recommend this book to my friend because I was like, you gotta check it out. It's so scary. It made me all scared. I had nightmares. And she read it and she was like, Samantha, really? That was scary to you? But for me, I feel like there's a difference between reading a scary book at nighttime as opposed to when you're reading it at 3 p.m. with the birds chirping outside. So obviously it's not going to feel as scary. So I do recommend, if you're going to be listening to an audiobook, read it at night with the lights off, just to yourself, and I guarantee that will make any book like exponentially scary. The imagery in the book for me was really spooky. I thought they did a really good job, especially since this is, I believe, in the late 70s they made this book. For me, sometimes not seeing and just imagining how things are can sometimes be scarier than when you're watching something and they're just overly showing you everything. I think your mind can play tricks on you and make something that seemingly doesn't sound too bad become really scary when all you're left is your imagination. So that's really where I think that took place in the Amityville Horror. It's just a haunted house story, essentially. It's about this couple who take their children to move into this nice house in this nice neighborhood, and of course they got a great deal. So they move into this house, and shortly after things are kind of starting to go awry, they're having friends over, and the friends are kind of like, hey, I don't want to stay here, you know, something came up, I gotta go. And then they have a priest come by to bless the house, and he's kind of like, hey, you know, I have somewhere to be. I forgot to tell you, gotta go, bye. So they're kind of like, you know, that's weird, but they still haven't really pieced together that something's wrong with their house. It's not until later on when things are starting to happen, the kids are starting to get scared, things are starting to move in their house, that they kind of start realizing something's off. So I recommend the classic version of the movie. The newer version, I feel there's a lot of there's a lot of jump scares that aren't necessary. They try to make it seem scarier than it really is. So I definitely recommend that book at night with headphones, okay?
It's the kind of house they don't build anymore. A relic of a time when the world wasn't in such a hurry. when there was still time for a little charm and elegance. It has stood empty for a long while, and at the price, it is a bargain.
The next one I have to mention is Psycho. So for me, I had heard about this book pretty much my whole life. Because if you've just been around for a while, you do know that there's an iconic shower scene. But for me, I thought when I was reading the book, that was going to be at the very end, kind of like the climax of the story, the huge shower scene, but it's actually within the first like 30 pages. So after that happened, I was kind of like, what are they going to fill the rest of this book with? That must have been it. But it actually follows her sister and a detective trying to figure out what happened to her after she's gone missing, and the last place she was at the Bates Motel. So eventually throughout the book, they're starting to piece clue by clue, and then they start snooping around the hotel trying to get more answers on how she went missing. So for me, that was a really cool element that I didn't expect, where it kind of had a little bit of mystery to it, and I believe for the most part the book was really well written, that it kept you involved. There weren't many times where I was kind of getting distracted. It really kind of kept you engaged the whole time. So I really recommend Psycho, plus the movie by Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, that's just the fact that that movie was done so long ago and still resides and holds a presence today, that's just awesome. That just shows the good writing, the good style, the good, Alfred Hitchcock, how timeless he is. He's amazing. And it's in black and white, so I think it's a really cool film to watch when it's rainy outside, it's a little bit dark. Put on a good black and white film. So the next two, I tried really hard to stay away from Stephen King, but it was really difficult because there's so many book to films that I didn't realize they're mostly all Stephen King, a good majority of them. So the next two are Stephen King, but I really do feel these are awesome books and awesome movies as well. So we have the movie Carrie, which was probably one of the first films that I saw that I kind of felt like, oh, this is a scary movie. This is creepy. In fact, me and my mom still to this day are like, they're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you. We still say that from time to time based off of that film, because it's just silly, some of the things in there. But if you don't know what it's about, obviously it's about this girl Carrie, and she's really awkward. She's got pimples. She's not pretty. None of the boys like her, and so she's having a really hard high school experience. But she's starting to discover she kind of has like these powers where she can move things with her mind, and she's starting to use that to her advantage when she realizes that she can kind of do some revenge if she wants to all these mean bullies. So something a little bit different that I noticed between the book and the film is the book did obviously have all the things that happened in the movie, the beginning scenes, the pig scene, the prom scene, all that stuff. It was either in between the book or it was at the very end of the book where they had tons of research done. They had analysts talking about schizophrenia, paranoia, demonic possessions, exorcism, telekinesis, stuff like that. So it was pretty cool to hear a whole other side and more of the scientific studies behind it. It's kind of interesting to see a whole other aspect and more of a logical based reasoning for what Carrie was going through and how she kind of was, how she had powers, I guess you could say. So that was
They all laughed at me and threw things at me.
And Eve was weak. Say it.
No, Mama.
Eve was weak.
No.
Eve was weak.
No.
Eve was weak. Say it.
No,
woman.
Mama.
Say it.
Eve was weak. Eve was weak.
And the Lord visited Eve with a curse. The curse was a curse of blood.
You should have told me, Mama. You should have told me.
Oh, Lord. Help the sinning woman see the sin of her days and ways.
Lastly, we have Misery by Stephen King. So for me, I really enjoyed this book. It was a quick, light read, good page turner, really kept you involved. But the movie, I feel, was a very simple film. There was only 2 actors pretty much the whole time, and it was just kind of funny how, for me, I would feel that this story could have been done in 5 minutes. Like, really, a man being held captive by this woman, but she truly has it to where it's cat and mouse, that he really can't escape without her seeing. She has a watchful eye over him. So that's kind of, for me, I feel the movie was more scary and intense, because can you imagine just that feeling of dread of being held captive against your will with somebody who really you would feel in any other circumstance you'd be fine and you could take her on your own, but she has you so trapped, I guess you could say, that you really are just plotting your escape and you can't. So I feel the movie really does the book justice. The book was fine, the book was great, you know, the book was fine, but that movie really adds that extra layer of just that sense of helplessness that I feel sometimes is more scary, because you're kind of like, I can't do anything. I'm at this person's mercy, and she's crazy. Literally, she's insane. So Misery definitely was a good film, just to kind of give you that sense of, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next? And of course, there is that iconic scene on the bed, which is another scene that just makes you kind of like squirm, and you're like, I can't believe this lady is crazy. She's doing this. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with her?
Give me a bag of that effing pig feed and 10 pounds that bitchly cow corn. And in the bank, do I tell Mrs. Bollinger, oh, here's one big bastard of a check. Give me some of your Christing money. There, look there. See what you made me do?
So I hope you guys enjoyed my recommendations. I would say that all of these movies are pretty tame. There's not a lot of gore, there's not a lot of vulgar language. So if you have a friend or a sister or a brother who you're maybe wanting to introduce to watching scary movies, but you don't want to really have a lot of nudity or gore, or you feel like it might be something that's going to give them nightmares for life, I feel like these movies are not only classics that they're more than likely going to hear about or watch eventually in their lifetime, but they're just great to watch, and I feel like those are good staple iconic films. Or if you want to just read the book first, if you're kind of like me, or sometimes I do like to read the book before I see the film, go ahead and see if you have and what similarities you notice between the book and film, or if you feel they were totally different. Thanks guys for watching. Bye.